This is a quick response to a video titled "How Do You Know You're Speaking the Real Hebrew?" Vocab and Abu, which came out on August 2nd on the 666 mark account. For those who don't know, that's the official account of Tahar. To explain the background or context of that video, back on July 26th, Vocab Malone visited GMS Dallas, which are followers of Tahar based down in Texas. And during that visit, among other things, he confronted them on Lashawan Qadash, the system of Hebrew pronunciation that is endorsed by GMS and most other One West groups. And Vocab presented an argument against Lashawan Qadash, appealing to the transliteration of a statement made by Jesus in the New Testament. And he also made a passing appeal to the transliterations in the Septuagint. The point of Vocab's argument was that ancient transliterations show that ancient Hebrew had more vocalizations than is recognized by proponents of Lashawan Qadash. And I subsequently made a number of videos discussing the significance of the argument that Vocab had presented. Now, this video from Tahar, from back on August 2nd, was an attempt to respond to that. Regarding that response from Tahar, which we're about to look at, I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, but my honest opinion is that it was poorly argued. And yet it was receiving comments like this, quote, "What you gotta say now, Vocab," end quote, as if the video presented a definitive and powerful argument. Now, then again, I'm pretty sure that comment was left by Orion Lob, so I don't know if that's just a partisan issue. I have to wonder if Orion Lob actually believed what he wrote, if he actually thought the video was a good one, and if he did, I have to wonder if he actually understood Vocab's argument. Let's go ahead and take a look at one salient part of the video. Here we go.
When the Lord was on the cross and he said, "Eli, Eli," was it Sabachthani? I gotta actually read it, but I know Eli, Eli is in there, Sabachthani, and there was something else I forget. But anyway, Vocab goes, the Lord actually said, "Eli, Eli." Well, where's the proof of that? That's from a translation from the Hebrew into the Greek into the English.
This was actually discussed in the very videos that Tahar was responding to or attempting to respond to. Nonetheless, I'll go over it again here. First off, regarding the question of where's the evidence that Jesus said Eli, the evidence would be the Gospel of Matthew itself, assuming we are believers in the position that the Gospel of Matthew is Scripture. Second, it's Vocab's not appealing to the English. It wasn't based on the English. He was basing it on the Greek text. Third, the Greek text is not a translation of the relevant word. Rather, it is a transliteration. And translation conveys meaning. Transliteration conveys sound, it captures pronunciation. Let's focus on the word that was at the center of Vocab's argument, which is this word right here. It's spelled Aleph Lamed Yod. It's a general word for deity with a first-person singular possessive suffix attached to it. And now, so this word means my God. And now the question is, how is that word pronounced? Suppose we took a very short survey where we asked both Tahar and Vocab how that word is pronounced, and we had them write it down. Now, so suppose when we did this, Tahar, who believes that the word is pronounced Aliyah, wrote Ahlaya. And then suppose that Vocab simply wrote Eli because he believes the word is pronounced Eli. What's interesting is that even if we don't have recordings of Tahar's voice or Vocab's voice, their transliterations into the Latin script capture how they think the word is pronounced. You can tell from the way they transliterated the word how they thought the word was pronounced. Now, just as transliterations into the Latin script capture pronunciation, so too transliterations into the Greek script capture pronunciation. Now, consider this. Hypothetically speaking, if the author of Matthew believed that the relevant word was pronounced alaya, he could have conveyed that in the Greek text, as we see on this first line here. Hypothetically speaking, he could have written alpha, lambda, alpha, iota, alpha, and that would have conveyed alaya. But that's not what he wrote. What actually appears in Matthew's text is eta, lambda, iota, which conveys the pronunciation eli. What this shows is that we have an ancient text taking the position that the word is actually pronounced eli. And this is something that Tahar and other proponents of Lashawan Qadash have to address. You claim that the relevant word is pronounced alaya, but do you have any evidence in favor of that position? Now, Tahar will say, oh, it's just on faith. Well, Vocab's position is that the word is pronounced eli, and it's not a mere position of faith. He has ancient evidence in favor of his position. Think about that deeply. You take on blind faith a position which lacks any evidence, while Vocab's position does have evidence, and it's ancient evidence. Let me play one more brief clip, about a 35-second clip from Tahar's video, which pretty much sums up the rest of his video.
I did a little research, and I'm at this page here, Revival of the Hebrew Language, and I'll read some of it. There's a lot of, and I'll read about your Perlman, the guy that came up, Ben Yehudi, Eliezer Ben Yehudi, which his real name is Eliezer Perlman, Yitzhak Perlman. All right, he's supposedly the father of modern Hebrew.
From there, Tahar pretty much spent the rest of the video reading from Wikipedia entries about Eliezer ben Yehuda and about ben Yehuda's role in the revival of the Hebrew language, of the bringing about of modern Hebrew as a spoken language. And in a video that's almost half an hour long, he spends something like 25 minutes reading these Wikipedia entries about Ben Yehuda, essentially attacking a straw man. Think about this for a second. Eliezer ben Yehuda lived in the 19th century. Vocab was quoting from the New Testament. Obviously, his argument does not hinge on anything coming from Ben Yehuda. His argument appealed to ancient transliterations, which have nothing to do with Ben Yehuda. I was surprised that Tahar had missed that simple point. Nonetheless, a little over a week later, on August 10th, him and his camp were airing live from Morningside Heights, and he was making the same argument. And so I was inspired to leave a comment in the live chat of that live feed, asking him if he actually thinks that Ben Yehuda had some sort of impact on the Greek text of the New Testament. They wound up reading the question live on air.
Tahar, you got a question by Abu Kamar Al.
Oh, that asshole.
Oh, that asshole.
Another asshole.
Yeah.
You know, what's your question, bro?
He said, wait, does Tahar think Eliezer ben Yehuda has an effect on the Greek text of the New Testament?
I don't know. I gotta do the research.
If Tahar is uncertain as to whether or not Eliezer ben Yehuda, a man from the 19th century, influenced transliterations that predate him by nearly 2 millennia, then how much thought did Tahar put into this subject? How much does he even understand Vocab's argument? I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but I think that makes it painfully clear that he didn't understand Vocab's argument. Before I close this video, I want to note that for many years, Tahar confidently feigned knowledge of Hebrew, giving the impression that he could read Hebrew.
That word is not there in the Hebrew if you know how to read Hebrew.
Right.
If you have a Tanakh, a Torah, all right, you would know.
However, some of us knew that he could not read Hebrew, that he never learned how to read Hebrew. And just for an example of such, consider this video from almost exactly a year ago titled Jeremiah 14:2 Reweighed, and notice how he struggles through the text of the verse.
Jeremiah 14:2 is Abala Yahawada. Abala meaning morning. Washa ire. All right, wa sha'ir yah meaning gate. It's from the word sha'ir, which means gate or gates. So the gates language, which is Amal, it says Qadash, which is black, meaning when the Hebrew is H6937, Qadash, which means dark.
One benefit of Vocab going around and challenging different groups on the subject of Lashawan Qadash was that when Vocab and his team visited Tahar's camp, Tahar was suddenly unwilling to feign knowledge of Hebrew. In fact, when a member of Vocab's team asked Tahar to read a certain text in Hebrew, Tahar readily conceded that he doesn't know how to read Hebrew.
Since you know Hebrew, tell me what the Hebrew is and explain it.
Well, we can look it up.
Read the Hebrew of Leviticus 12 and tell me what it means. I'm not deep reader of Hebrew. I can't read Hebrew.
In a vacuum, unfamiliarity with Hebrew is nothing to be ashamed of. There are plenty of people who don't know plenty of languages. In fact, that's true of all of us. Every single one of us, there's a bunch of languages we don't know. And so, but the significance of this should be understood against the backdrop of who he is and who he's been for the last few decades. This is a man who spent literally decades of his life feigning confident knowledge of Hebrew and spent decades of his life lecturing others about Hebrew. So within that context, it is important to note that the man never learned Hebrew, that to this day he doesn't know Hebrew. On another point that's worth considering, imagine if you had a child that you sent to school, and imagine you sent your child to a school for 40 years, for nearly 40 years, for let's say 38 years, and after 38 years, your child still could not read English. Wouldn't that be grounds to take your kid out of that school? Wouldn't you reach the conclusion that the school is a failure? With that in mind, think about how Tahar has been in this One West movement for nearly 40 years, and yet he's never actually learned how to read Hebrew. This is also significant for his followers. Here it is, this man is telling you to take Lashawan Qadash on faith and to reject systems that actually have evidence in their favor. Why would you take on faith the teachings of a man who doesn't even know the language that he's telling you to have faith in?